we want to welcome back our friend Elias Deis from the Holy Land Trust. Uh, we, Elias, we met a year ago, 2 years ago. I've forgotten what it is now, but Elias has been our guest once or twice before, and I so appreciate that you've been willing to give us some time to come back and talk again. Uh, it couldn't be more important that we talk about this now. Before everyone came on, we were chatting, and um, I think it's the case that the approach to war and conflict that the Holy Land Trust takes and the approach that Zen Peacemakers takes are quite similar, if not identical. Uh, we we support everyone in these conflicts and try to, or looking to find, as Bernie would say, as we would say, the one body, to identify the one body and to be with that. And it's not easy. I think as just human nature, we really want to go to our corner, so to speak, or to take a position that's for something and against something else. And it feels good to do that. It feels good to do that. It's not easy to hold the whole conflict in your heart. It hurts. It hurts, and it's not resolved, and it may not be resolvable. So anyway, one of the reasons I really appreciate Elias and the Holy Land Trust and the work that they're doing, which is extraordinary and just strikes me as being incredibly brave, what they're doing. So I want to mute myself. I want to hand over the microphone to my friend Elias from Bethlehem and let him talk about moving from trauma to hope in the Holy Land. Elias, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff, for inviting me. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate your time that you're giving me to share and speak the voices from the Holy Land, from what you call it, Israel, Palestine, the Promised Land, whatever you call it. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for me to share and to raise our voice for the international community. We believe, I personally believe it's very important for the international community to connect and to get to know, even if you are living, thousands of miles away from the problems here. But as Jeff started mentioning from Bernie's word, we are one body. And if your kidney is sick, your whole body is sick. Your heart, is not happy, your whole body is not quite is happy. So this is why we are all connected. Doesn't matter the geographical division, the distance that we are living in, what happened in every corner in this world can affect everyone. Because it's all about energy. It's all about, we're all from the same energy field that we need to balance this energy. And I would love to share about, who I am and why I am here and why I'm talking from Bethlehem in this moment. I grew up here in Bethlehem as a Palestinian. I identify myself as I am an Arab Palestinian and Christian and spiritual, person, and a Zen student as well. So, here it's important for the international community to distinguish and to be aware that Arabs, when I identify myself as an Arab, which means that I am, my ethnicity is an Arab, because, all the Arab countries here, we are in the Middle East, we identify ourselves as an Arab. So this doesn't have to do anything with your religion or your identity, the national identity. So I am an Arab because I speak Arabic. My mother tongue is Arabic, and I belong to the Arabic culture. That's why my cultural identity is an Arab. Then I am Palestinian because I was born in Palestine. I hold a Palestinian ID, Palestinian passport, and then I am Christian because I was born to a Christian family and I was raised Christian. So my religion is Christian. So you might find an Arab Jew, an Arab Christian, Arab Muslim, Arab Buddhist. So when I say I'm an Arab, that doesn't mean that I am only Muslim or I am only Jew or I am only. So this is the kind of that the international community should distinguish, because I've been facing a lot of like not issues, but like something when I travel to the US and when I travel to Europe and I identify myself as I am an Arab Christian, they say, when did you convert? They think that all Arabs are Muslims, and I convert to Christianity by one of these white European missionaries that they came here 50 years ago or 100 years ago. I always say I was converted to Christianity 2,000 years ago. I was maybe a Jew living here. If I go back to my family ancestors, I think the roots were, like a Jewish family converted to Christianity 2,000 years ago when Jesus was here, when he was born in my neighborhood. And then they converted to Christianity. So, and then the Islam came, and many Christians and Jews converted to Islam as well. So we are all, as I said, we're all mixed from the same roots. So I grew up here as an Arab Palestinian Christian, speaking Arabic, going to the church every Sunday, but in the same time, witnessing something, like there was always fear. There was always anger, violence around me as a child, living here in Bethlehem. I was witnessing all the daily violation of the Israeli military occupation, attacking our neighborhoods, arresting people from my neighborhood. My father was arrested several times just for the accusation is just because you are just Palestinian and because you are raising the flag of the Palestinian flag in your neighborhood, or because you are just standing against the injustices that is happening, which is the Israeli military control. The neighborhood where I lived in, were very active in the civil disobedience and the nonviolence resistance against the Israeli military occupation. I will talk more about it. But as a Palestinian Christian, living here and witnessing all these kind of violences and military occupation, and I used to encounter daily, every day, an Israeli militaries that they are standing in front of my school or standing in the neighborhood, that they are with your uniform, with their uniform, with their weapons. They speak Hebrew, and they have a kippah, the Jewish kippah. And for me and for all the Palestinians, those are the Jews. This is how we encounter and we know the Jewish people, is by seeing and encountering the Israeli military soldiers. And for me, as a Palestinian Christian, going to the church every Sunday, and for me, reading the Old Testament, reading the New Testament, and for me, my favorite book was the book of Psalm, which is the prayer of Solomon and David. And for me, like many of the verses in the Old Testament is talking about the land of Israel. God bless those who bless Israel. And there was, a big question for me as a Palestinian Christian going to the church, connected with the Bible, and the same time encountering the Jewish people, the people of Israel, in my neighborhood with a uniform, with military, with weapons, arresting my father, beating my friends, shooting, putting curfew in the city. That was a big question. Like, are those the people that we are talking about or we are praying for in the Old Testament, in the Bible? And I never got an answer, like I was sometimes questioning my Christianity and my belief in the church and in the Bible because, like God is blessing and giving them everything in the Old Testament, but not on the ground. I see, the bad people, the external threat of my life that I never understand. So this created on me a lot of fear, anger, stress. For me as as a child, I couldn't maybe sleep at night, or I couldn't even leave the house by myself without any protection from my family because there was always fear. Even fearing the Hebrew language for me was a big trigger for fear. That sometimes I freeze when I hear. I used to freeze when I hear Hebrew language or I see the Israeli flag. It's just something that I'm afraid of. I want to make the big, long story short, but, growing up into this environment of fear, anger, and stress as a child, I never understand. I couldn't even know how to deal with my anger. The only way, escaping to your room or maybe sitting with your parents. My mom used to read stories, sometimes pray with me. That's the only place where I got to feel safe and to deal with my emotions. I started I was suffering with from the migraine when I was a child, and in my also adulthood, I was suffering from a severe migraine, and I never understand why. What is this pain comes from? Where the pain comes from? Where the my body is reacting in a weird way. Uh, So I always also was connected with Jesus as a role model for me, that he's the one, he came to this earth calling for justice, fighting for injustices, standing with those who are oppressed against the oppression, calling for equality, love, peace, loving your enemy. That was the major question, or like something, maybe it was a milestone in my life when I got to hear Jesus is telling me to love my enemy. And I never get to understand how. Like, shall I just go to the street, offer maybe water to the soldiers, giving them flour? That's, like I never get an answer, like how to love my enemy. But as a person that I always look for the great path, I was looking for the path that gives me answers. I always used to see this light in the darkness. And even I started, I was a teen, like in my 20s, I started to close my eyes and just breathe. And I could see the light. There's a light. When you close your eyes, there is a light. And for me, that was, I'm sure there is a light in the darkness, even in our light. There is always light that they have to keep, diving and digging for the truth, digging for the reality. And and then after, I will talk a little bit about, my childhood again, that, when my neighborhood decided to join the nonviolence resistance and to call for civil disobedience, because in that time, maybe for those who don't know, like since 1967 until today, the West Bank, where we are living, Bethlehem located in the West Bank in Palestine, and the West Bank, the whole West Bank is fully controlled by the Israeli military since 1967, which we called it, and according to the international community and international law, these are the occupied territories since 1967, where we have a daily presence of an Israeli military. In that time, in the 1987, everything was fully under the Israeli military control before the peace agreement. And the Palestinian people living in the West Bank, especially in my neighborhood, when they started to call for civil disobedience, they started to stand against the injustice and calling for an equal right. Because as a Palestinian, in that time, we are living in the West Bank, we are the second-class citizen, that we don't have the full right and full services as any Israeli Jew living in Israel. And, like we used to pay tax for the Israeli military in that time without getting any services in return. So then my neighborhood decided to not pay tax for the Israeli military as a reaction or as part of the civil disobedience until we get our equal rights. And my father was active in that time as a nonviolent resistor and calling for the civil disobedience. He refused to pay tax. And there was a reaction, a response from the Israeli military and the Israeli government to put a collective punishment on the people who are living in this neighborhood. There was a curfew, closure. Nobody can move. Nobody can go out of their homes. And at the same time, they used to get in the neighborhood and confiscate all the belongings of those who refuse to pay tax. They get into the homes of those people, confiscate all the furnitures, all the belongings that they have as a collective punishment. So that was, the first encounter for me. This was a time when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, where I used to see and, hear my father arranging activities and when I I encountered the first Palestinian nonviolence action against the Israeli military, which was a very peaceful, there was no violence, no attack, just refusing to pay tax and calling for equal rights. My father was arrested several times due to this activity. And for me, that was, I found, I get to understand that there is a power of the nonviolence. There is a power that if, like not paying a tax or taking a small action is shaking the whole system. You are shaking the whole system that they are afraid. They don't know what to do. They just attack. They just want to put pressure. They want to put collective punishment, arrest people because, you just took a small action. And they thought that was the power of nonviolence, where I got to understand that this is an important path that I would love to take when I grow up. And I was, inspired by Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and even we had a visit from Desmond Tutu came to my neighborhood when I was, in 1989. To show solidarity with the people who are taking this civil disobedience. And for me, that was also a great, sign for me that what we are doing is important and I need to follow the path of the nonviolence. And after 7 years of this, we called it intifada, like civil disobedience. It took 7 years. After the 7 years, Palestinian leaders and Israeli leaders decided to sign the first peace agreement between Israel and Palestine, calling for two-state solution. And then, unfortunately, what we found out on the ground, that the two-state solution is not viable anymore because 60% of the West Bank, where we are living, remained under the Israeli military control, and the rest of the 40% were also categorized as Area A and B, which is only 15% was under the Palestinian full control, and another, around 20% is Area B, which is mixed, Palestinian control, but the military, the security remains under the Israeli military. So, and that time after the peace agreement, this number of Israeli settlers and settlements inside the West Bank started to become double by having more Israeli settlements, building more Israeli settlements inside the West Bank after 1995, 1994. So Palestinians found out that the peace agreement that we signed is not the real peace that we are looking for, because on the ground there was facts created by Israel on the ground, restrictions of movement. As a Palestinian holding the Palestinian idea, I'm not allowed to go to Jerusalem anymore because of the peace agreement, because part of the peace agreement that they installed a permanent checkpoint all over the West Bank, that no one from the West Bank can go to Israel or to Jerusalem anymore without getting Israeli military permit. And since 1996 until today, all the Palestinians need to go to Jerusalem. For me, like as a Palestinian Christian, I want to go to the church in Jerusalem. I'm not allowed anymore without having an Israeli military permit. And the same for the Muslim. So these kind of facts on the ground that Palestinians being shocked, seeing it on the ground, created a new, trauma and fear that became an anger and a violence that ended up by starting a new uprising in the year 2000, which was more violence. Palestinians are fighting for their rights, using violence, using military actions. That was the reaction of the Palestinian out of anger. So Holy Land Trust was founded in that period in 1998. And Holy Land Trust is a Palestinian non-profit organization that was founded in Bethlehem in 1998, just during that time when everyone was talking about peace, while in the ground there was no peace. There was more separation, division, violence, anger, hate, lack of trust. So Holy Land Trust came to this vision, like how can we, to create, the Holy Land as a place for peace for everyone, away from any political solution. How can we come to the vision that this is the Holy Land? This is the land that was given by God or chosen by God to Abraham and all his children. And everyone living in this land is a son of Abraham. So it's not only about the Jews, not about the Christians or Muslim, but how can we share and flourish this land, living in equality, acceptance, peace, and justice. So Holy Land Trust, when it was founded, also trying to understand. So that was the vision, but the vision was built on trying to understand what happened in the history that shifted the relationships between Arabs and Jews in this land. This land that contains Arabs, Jew, and Arabs, I mean Christians are Muslim and Jew. It has also Samaritan. We have the Samaritan community, the oldest Samaritan community in the Holy Land. We have the Druze, we have the Baha'i. Before 1948, there was everyone living side by side and sharing the land without any conflict. And we are trying to understand what happened in the history that shifted this relationship from friendship to enemy. Jews and Arab, I used to live side by side in the same neighborhood in Jerusalem and Bethlehem, sharing everything and celebrating feasts together until 1948. That happened when the establishment of the State of Israel shifted the relationship between Arabs and Jews, that they start labeling the Jew as an enemy. Israel represents all the Jewish people, and the Jewish people are our enemy because they are taking our land. That was how the relationship started to change and shift. So we, as an organization, trying to understand the main causes, the root causes of violence. What is the main causes of violence? That if we look at the history again, 1948 is the establishment of the State of Israel. And the establishment of the State of Israel was a response to the needs of the Jewish people who've been suffering and, experiencing a very horrific event in Europe, which is the Holocaust. What happened to the Jewish people in the Holocaust that caused this kind of trauma and fear, and calling that this is never again. And for the Jewish people, they started to fight that they want a safe place to live without fear, without threat, without any external enemies. Went, never again. So the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 was the answer for the Jewish people, for the Jewish needs, that, they want a home, they got one. They want safety, security, they got the best and the strongest security system in the world. And they want, in the same time, to connect to their ancestors' land, which is Israel. So 1948 was an establishment that Israel was established over 75% of the historical Palestine, leaving and causing, a new pain and a new trauma for the Palestinian people, that they've been displaced, expelled from their villages and towns, being killed or massacred in their own villages by the Jewish Haganah. And this, event created a new trauma, a collective generational trauma in the other side, in the Palestinian, that they see the Jewish people as a threat to their existence, and we want to protect ourselves and we want to fight. And that's why, the people, they started to shift their relationship with the Jewish people as the enemy. Because what Israel did is representing the whole Jewish people, and this is where the conflict starts. But rejection, enemies, hate, anger, and these are the main motivator for violence. That the circle of violence will keep going and on years and years if we do not heal the generational trauma for the Jewish people and for the Palestinians. How can we heal that? So for Holy Land Trust, it's very important. This is the main core of our work, that we need to understand the main cause of violence, that we need to heal and transform individuals and communities from the trauma to the hope. And how can we, heal our trauma, and how can we respond to the trauma and to make the trauma hope, like to transform trauma into hope, by basically responding to the needs of the local communities. What is your needs? And just to understand the need of the individuals and the communities that they are living here, and to respond to that and give them, whatever they need, in a way that they feel they are equal, they are human. As long as there is no equality and there is no acknowledgement of the pain of the other, we will never achieve a peaceful solution. Because lack of trust, hate, anger, it's in here, it's always here. But if you don't deal with it, if you don't heal it, it will, manifest in a violent way, or in a negative way, let's say. So that was the main core, where we developed a trauma healing program, where we are not a psychologist, we are not, a therapist, but we try to deal with the trauma from a spiritual approach, where people need to connect with themselves. We need to connect with ourselves to understand what is our need, what is our fear, and how can we deal and respond to it on an emotional level and also in a physical level. Uh, what is the need of me as a Palestinian Christian living in Bethlehem? What is my need to live in peace? For me, I can say freedom of movement. I just want to feel that I have the freedom to drive my car every weekend, taking the ride from Bethlehem to the Galilee in the north, which is just 3 hours from Bethlehem, where I can just sit in front of the Lake of Galilee, close my eyes, meditate, sleep there, and come back. That's how I feel in peace, that I want to feel connected to my heritage, to my land. The Sea of Galilee is the place where Jesus spent his ministry there. And for me, as a Palestinian and as a Christian, and I can say, as a follower of Jesus, I feel I'm very much connected to these places, that I need to go there to sit and connect and meditate and pray. But this is not the way I am living it. I'm not allowed even to leave the West Bank or to go to the Galilee without getting Israeli military permit, which is impossible to get. You need to have one of the three reasons in a way to get permits. Either if you are sick and you don't have medical treatment in Palestine, and you need to find appointment in an Israeli hospital where they can invite you to their hospital to get a permit. The second way is if you have a work contract, if you work in Israel with any company, you can get a permit. They can apply for a permit for you. And the third way is we call it religious holidays. If you are a Muslim, you get holiday once a year. You get a permit once a year to go and pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. And if you're a Christian, you can get permit twice a year, once in Christmas and once in Easter for a week long permit. Other than that, there's no way for me to go to Jerusalem or Galilee. So these are the basic needs. I'm talking and just giving an example about what is the basic needs for people. So if we do not understand the basic needs, we will never reach into a peaceful solution. This is why, as I said, we are one of the first Palestinian organization talking about trauma healing and how can we develop a trauma healing program. And I joined in 2007. I've been there since 18 years now. And this means that Holy Land Trust is not a job for me. Holy Land Trust is my path, is my call. When I joined in 2007, the first task I got, because I studied tourism management. I come from a tourism background. I applied for Holy Land Trust as a travel coordinator because Holy Land Trust as well, they have the advocacy program where they organize tours for international community to come and meet the local communities here in Israel and Palestine. Because again, part of our trauma that we feel nobody is listening to us. Nobody is seeing us. We are not human even. This is how the Palestinian feel. And when we talk with an international, when we bring international, we feel we are recognized. Somebody is listening to us, which means that we are here. We are human. We are not, unvalued. So that was part of the programs that I joined at Holy Land Trust to coordinate visits for internationals to come here, get first-hand stories. The first group I was encountered to work with was an American group, and I found out that those are American Jews, that they are rabbinical students. They are deciding to come to Jerusalem, and they decided to come to Bethlehem for one day to visit the Palestinian side. For me, that was like how can I meet Jewish people? Like, I am meeting my enemies. And that was, the question and the argument I had with with the boss in that time, with Sami Awad. He's the founder for Ilan Trust. Like, how can I walk with those people wearing kippas in the city of Bethlehem? It's very risky. Like, how people will look at me that I am betrayer, I'm normalizer. And then he invited me to ask the question. Like he invited me just to take a deep breath and just to distinguish and just to think for a moment the difference between the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Like, the state of Israel does not represent the whole Jewish people. That there is a people, like there is a Jewish people that they are against injustice. They are fighting for human being, and they are fighting for many causes around the world. So this does not mean that every Jew is responsible or connected with what Israel is doing. And that was, the invitation for me just to think, differently, to think out of the books and to also face my own trauma, that how I label the Jewish people because of my childhood trauma, that I am afraid from the Jew. The Jewish people are the military. The Jewish people are the occupier. And I had to go back to my own trauma, my personal childhood trauma, that I have to distinguish and face it, that there is another reality. There is another way of thinking. And I got to distinguish that, yes, there is a good people. They are a good people. And they are fighting for peace and for justice. That was the first, I don't want to say transformation in my life, the first milestone. And then Sami challenged me again, and he told me, I'm inviting you to go to Poland for a retreat. And that was the retreat in November, which called the Zen Peacemaker Retreat, that you are all familiar with. And I joined this Bearing Witness retreat in 2000, I believe, 14, maybe 14, 13, long time ago. Wow, like 11 years ago. When I got to meet Bernie, Eve, I got to meet incredible people there, that I decided to take this challenge and go to the Bearing Witness, to the concentration camps, with one intention: to understand the Jewish trauma and to understand the Jewish pain, and how this pain and this trauma is still going until today, that we need to heal and transform this trauma that exists since more than 80 years. When I was there as a Palestinian, being in the concentration camps, it was, in the first moment, was, like flashback to my childhood, the fence, the wall, checkpoints. There was triggering my fear and my trauma and my childhood. In the same time, like, why I'm here, like, why I'm betraying my people, like, because that was a very a low profile visit, that I cannot even talk about it in public, that I've been to Auschwitz and Birkenau, because for some people they say that, yeah, like, it's, you are standing with the enemy, you are showing solidarity with the enemy. But I invited myself to live and experience this retreat, where I got to experience this horrific moment that the Jewish people have been facing. And, like, never again, and yes, like, never again for everyone. That this was a very horrific event that nobody can even imagine this amount of, pain that was in that place. But in the same time, I was asking myself, or telling myself, never again for everyone. And in the same time, I was witnessing the school trips in Auschwitz and Birkenau that is organized by the Israeli government, sending Israeli teenagers like 14, 15 years old to Auschwitz and Birkenau with their teachers carrying the Israeli flag in the middle of the concentration camps, and their teachers are telling them never again. And never again, that they have to protect their nation and protect their existence here. So I started seeing these teenagers, coming to Auschwitz, brainwashed that this is, like not brainwashed, but I mean, like this, that you have to stand strong against your nation, for your nation, and to fight for your existence. So those people, they go back to Israel, and in 1 or 2 years, they become the Israeli military who are standing on the checkpoint, stopping me, checking my ID, and then they look at me that I am the enemy. I am the threat of their existence. So this is how the generational trauma keep going on and on. And and this actually motivate fear and anger, and which comes, the violence. So that's why we, as an organization, decided to do let's do a healing trauma program, which can be on a collective level where we can invite Israeli and Palestinian to come together into a healing program. And I was one of these, trainings, because for us as an organization, we do not organize peace a joint meeting between Israeli and Palestinian just for the sake of meeting. We are not in a position to bring Israeli and Palestinian to let them to be friends, but we are in a position where we want to bring Israeli and Palestinian to face their own trauma and their own personal and collective trauma, and how they can deal with it collectively to heal and transform it. So that was one of the experiences that we had, when we bring Israeli and Palestinian and they share their trauma, they share their fear, their feelings, their emotions. We find out that we are both victim of the same system here, that we are both traumatized. We've been both, living in this fear that we are not accepting each other, we are not trusting each other, and we refuse each other, and we want to fight against each other. But once you bring them into this level of heart-to-heart connection, to understand the pain, you bring them to a different level that, yeah, we need to do a joint resistance. We need to fight together against all the kind of injustices. This is why we have now the program, which is part of our nonviolent department. It's called the Joint Resistance, where we bring Israeli and Palestinian together to stand against the injustice and to stand against the Israeli military forces in the West Bank and to call for equal rights. This is what we do. We are promoting as well nonviolence training as an organization, believe in the core of nonviolence as the main way and the main path for resistance. So other than these programs, we do a lot of sub-projects on the ground where we work with the communities. We respond to the community's needs. For example, those Palestinian families who their home was demolished by the Israeli military, we rebuild the house in the same place, same size, with an Israeli-Palestinian international activist as a response to the violence, as a nonviolent action. At the same time, it's part of responding to the trauma of that family. Imagine this family that they are traumatized from the event itself. When they demolish a house, they give the family like up to 10 minutes to leave the house, take whatever you can, and in the middle of the night, they demolish your house. Then imagine the amount of fear and anger that remains in this family, especially the children. And when you go there with an international solidarity group and Israeli solidarity group, Israeli lawyers, to fight for your right as a Palestinian, it's a great release. It's a great healing that they feel they are not alone. We are recognized. We are human, and people care about us. But if this family is left alone, imagine the amount of depression and despair and anger that it will manifest in a violent way, in a domestic violence or anything that they can do to revenge and to release the anger. So we are taking, these kind of actions, like when a family lost their home, we go there. When we have now the increase of the settler violence in the West Bank, the settler violence is increasing, and every day they are attacking Palestinian communities, uprooting their trees, killing. Actually, one of our field coordinator was killed 3 weeks ago in South Hebron Hills. His name is Oda Hadalin. He was one of the main nonviolent activists in the community, and he was helping us implementing all the projects in that area, responding to the needs, providing food, providing housing, mobile houses like caravans for those who lost their homes. We were about to install a new water system for the community before he was killed. So, but unfortunately, a settler, an Israeli settler, came from the nearby settlement, destroyed their original water pipe, and there was 3 homes was demolished, and he shot Hoda on his chest. Maybe you heard in the news about him. That now we are calling for justice for Hoda, and we are calling for accountability of the settler, that he was released just few hours after the Israeli military came, or like after the Israeli military police and the Israeli military and police, they arrested the settler. Few hours later, he was released, and there was no accountability. So what we do, I'm sorry, I don't know how much time I have to speak, Jeff, but I can share forever. But
Elias, you have another 40 minutes if you'd like to use it, and
okay, great.
we'll have time for questions and discussion.
But yeah, yeah, I would like to keep talking. I would love to have an interactive questions for you. But yeah, I'm just maybe summarizing now and that what Holy Land Trust is doing, transforming trauma into hope, because what we respond to the local community's need when we show the solidarity and we respond to whatever they need. It's a release for them. Like now we are developing the art therapy program, organizing activities for the children to release and to feel safe in the midst of this violence. Since October 7th, 2023, we've been facing a huge amount of, anger and fear and depression among the Palestinians, and also new restrictions on the West Bank. It's not comparable with what's happening in Gaza. In Gaza, they've been suffering with this genocide that is happening. And in the West Bank, we are facing a different way of, challenges, that restrictions of movement, roadblocks, settler attack, home demolition. That's also like watching the news itself on a daily basis. It's also creating kind of trauma and anger and depression. And we are trying to be the light in this darkness as an organization by providing safe spaces for children, for women. We have our well-being coach. We have yoga classes. We have meditation. I am, as a student with my teacher in Switzerland, I invited her last February to do a retreat for a Palestinian on Zen, on meditation, on silent meditation, just to sit and connect with yourself, to release your pain, to cry. And now we have decided to take the lead to develop a trauma-informed care methodology for the Palestinian context in Arabic language, because all the models and all the methodologies that we have It all comes from, European, Americans, or Western schools, which is great and which is, amazing tools. But I think we need to integrate it into our context, into Palestinian political and social, cultural context that can be also in Arabic. Sometimes we say meditation. We don't use it. We don't use the Arabic word for meditation. So this kind of now we are in a process of developing this strong methodology that we Holy Land Trust want to be the role, the lead in training new, trainers that they work with women, with kids, with youth. We do many activities, we do many training programs that maybe I can answer, talk about it during the questions and answers. But yeah, because I can talk about all the Holy Land Trust program for the next half an hour, but this is basically who we are, trying just to respond to the trauma in a way that people can see hope. Talking with you is also a sign of hope, because as I said before, that we feel nobody is care about us. Nobody give us the opportunity to share who we are. The international community, they are away from us. And this kind of space is also part of my healing for sharing. So yeah, thank you, Jeff, for that. And maybe we can get in questions and I can cover other topics as well. And feel free, for any question. There is no right and wrong questions.
Thank you, Elias. And we're a small enough group. I can see everybody. So if you just want to wave your hand, that's okay. Otherwise, there is an electronic hand down under React. And I'd love to get a good discussion going here with your questions. So feel free. Maybe while people are thinking about this, Elias, I've got one. You shared your story, your experience of going to Auschwitz, and I think Sammy did too, didn't he? And having kind of a revelation or a bigger understanding of trauma, and that it's everywhere, and that's changed your relationship with Israeli people, with Jewish people. My question is, with the people that come and do your programs, are you seeing that similar kind of transformation occur with people? Do people really make connections across the the conflicted groups?
Yes, that's I think with the question, yes, or we can see this shift and transformation in people's, for some of our participants in this healing trauma program, that they were ex-militant, Palestinian militant group that they believed in violence only. Some of our participants, they were ex-Israeli soldiers, or they've been coming from different backgrounds, that they come in now in a level of understanding each other and having a great connection, that they share the same vision and they work together. I can give one of these examples of our latest program, From Dialogue to Action, because we believe as an organization, there's other organizations that they do dialogue, they do peace building, but we do action. So From Dialogue to Action, where we recruited 38 Palestinian and Israelis, young people, we did with them, we separated them into two groups for 2 phases in this program. And then we worked with each group on trauma healing and leadership training and nonviolence communication. That was the first part of the program. And then the second program, we ask every group to implement action program, to implement community initiatives in the West Bank, mainly environmental initiative to call for environmental justice. So an initiative, related to water, land, air, and so they work together closely as a joint resistance in the West Bank, implementing a community initiative project. One of these successful projects, I always say that they decided to install a water pipes and a water system for an agricultural community in the Jordan Valley, where this Palestinian agricultural community, they don't have access to water because basically the Palestinian, we don't control the water in the West Bank. It's all under the Israeli control, while the settlement, nearby settler, Israeli settler, he has access 24/7 into water. And there was a nearby spring that the Palestinian farmers used to take, the, like how we said it, tanks and fill it from the nearby spring and bring it back to water their crops. So what the Israeli and the Palestinian group decide to connect these the water spring into the farmers' land, and we started implementing like water pipe and water system. And the Israeli activists, they were standing every day against the Israeli military forces that they were trying to stop the implementation of this project. And we had a great success by having this joint resistance, Israeli and Palestinian working together, because they believed this is injustice and this is injustice, and that we need to fight together and to stand against the injustice. We have many similar stories, that people are connected, people are more now connected, not on just for the sake of meeting but on a level, on the heart, level of the heart, and the level of the soul, that they are all see each other as equal, as a human, away from these political identities and agendas that we are labeled of.
Yeah, thank you, Elias. Please, Yaya, I think you have your hand, Yaya, and then Helen. Thank you.
Well, Elias, thank you so much for sharing these experiences you have. And what I think, a couple of things you said, they really resonate with me. And number one is the importance of community. Like in Buddhist community, we have the Sangha. You don't have to be a psychologist or a psychotherapist to be therapeutic with people. And I think the whole idea of humanity that you encounter in your groups, probably it's what reinstated hope. What I think is a very important issue because of the trauma that everybody, most of you in this area, and you mentioned very clearly. And one thing that I find is difficult is we all very hooked in identity, and that's how we differentiate from one another. We forget that we are just all the same, and it's so important to have that idea of we all suffer and we all can, in fact, regain hope and transform our ideas about the other, if you really think about that. And I would highly recommend that, I had the opportunity to meet and work a little with this psychoanalyst called Vamik Volkan. He's an older man. He's older than me, probably. And he wrote a long time ago an incredible piece of work called Chosen Trauma. And the whole idea is how we perpetuate trauma because of identity. And this is so difficult for those of you who have not only the internal reality, the fear, the threat, lack of freedom, like you said, is the external reality. You cannot do this. You are, and I think that the internal reality and the external reality are very traumatic. And I really, I love your compassion and your courage to go on. Like you said, your father did civil disobedience and all kinds of things. And again, I wish you the best in your community work, because that's what reinstated some level of trust and again, the confidence that we're all the same, we all suffer.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very important, because identity is one of the main issues that, people here are suffering, that we identify ourselves, with the land, with our religion, with our nationality, and identity is one of the important things here in our community, that you've been identified because like who you are. Like, when I go to another neighborhood, they ask me, who's your dad, and who's your father, and they can give me the name of all my fathers, because they identify me from where I come, and thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, yeah. Helen, you had your actual hand up first earlier, so let's go Helen, and then Martin, and then John Service. Go ahead, Helen.
Okay. I'm so grateful for what you're talking about, Elias, and your example of courage. I'm reading a book that may be familiar to others here by Kazu Haga, Fierce Vulnerability. And his approach is the necessity of our taking on healing in order to create the world that we long for. That this is personal and group-based healing, so we don't keep replicating the trauma as you are discovering. That is such a powerful piece of work, to move from individual trauma to doing what you're doing in group settings. Can you help me at all understand how you respond to the trauma of the Israelis that you are working with, who are terrified of losing their safety, of being attacked by Hamas and losing everything? This is what I am hearing from friends here, that creates that chosen trauma over and over of staying in our silos. How do you work with those things? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so for us, I'm talking before October 7th, that we've been doing this trauma healing, where, creating a safe space to see the Palestinian, to see the other, and to face your own trauma, your own fear, and to see that this is kind of an illusion when you look at the reality that you are living in. Part of this program, Israeli are not allowed to be in Palestinian territories. This is according to the peace agreement that was signed in 1994. Israeli are not allowed to be in Area A, which is where I live now. If Israeli Jew come here, he will be illegal, and he can be arrested by the Palestinian police and sent back to Israel with a fine. And for me, as I cannot go to Israel, so the only way that we used to meet is in Area C, which is on the West Bank, where Palestinian and Israeli can move in these areas, but fully under the Israeli military control. So one of the challenges that we had during our trauma healing program, that how can the Israeli face their own fear and their own fear of, losing their lives and being attacked and fearing of from others. And during this healing trauma, we get, and building this safe space where they got to see the Palestinian, they got to see also the pain of the Palestinian, that we are also afraid of losing our friends and losing ourselves from the Israeli military. So we are sharing the same fear. And when you come into an awareness and to a conscious that this is an illusion that I've been labeling myself and putting it in my system and believing that this is this is we call it, a protection system. And at the end, I'm just saying that the achievement of this training and exercise, that the Israeli decided to come to Area A with the Palestinian participants, driving their cars with the Palestinian to eat falafel and knafa, these public in Bethlehem. And that was, like just breaking up their illusion and fear that, yes, they are here, they are walking and, with their Palestinian friends without any threat. And that was, just you need to step out of your imagination and your illusion, and this is not a reality. That the trauma is an illusion, and you need to see the reality around you by taking a decision. We called it in our training, the nonlinear leadership training that we do. We say you're standing on the edge and you have to take this courage step to jump into the new reality. Jump with trust. You can building trust, and also how to make the impossible possible from the possibilities you have. And we say that we always build all our future decision based on our past experience. We never build our future decision based on what we have today. What is the reality today? It's based on our illusion past, so that I will not trust the Jew because my father was arrested 20 years ago. I will never make a friend, an Israeli friend, because Israel killed my grandfather in 1948. So I built my future decision based on my past experience. But if you look at the reality from a new, different eye, what we call it the non-linear leadership, that's also part of Holy Land Trust methodology, is how to look at the future without judging the future from your past, to make the impossible possible. And this is actually was the breakthrough. You will come into a breakthrough result by having this, vision and methodology in your life. So yes, this is how the approach we work. But unfortunately, since October 7th, we did not do any joint healing trauma program due to the security issue. And October 7th was a big trigger for many of us, trigger for our own trauma, fear, anger, again, for many of the Israeli and Palestinian activists. So now we've raised all our joint Israeli-Palestinian programs. I hope I answered your question clearly.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen. Martin, I don't want to miss you. You had your hand up earlier. If you'd still like to speak, please go ahead, and then we'll go to John next.
Okay, thanks. Elias, really moved by your compassion. Very, very strong statements. Being Jewish, an American Jewish person, I feel like I have to always re-examine everything through what I think is a lot of propaganda put out in our country. For instance, when you're talking about October 7th, the trauma that brought on has been used to further more violence. And we know the deal in Gaza. But I wanted to say, in terms of your talk, when you talked about going to Auschwitz, that was a very important thing you said about the way that the Israeli students were brought there. Because my daughter pointed that out to me. She showed me a video of that, and she was very hip to that idea that this is propagandizing the Holocaust, using it as a way to brainwash, like you said, those kids so that they become military fodder. And I think that's been going on in our country too. And Israel just does it more blatantly. I also had to say, I was in Israel when I was maybe 20. I'm 67 now. And I was on a kibbutz, and I went with a group that was fostering American Jews to go and volunteer in the kibbutz. So I was in Petah Tikva, kibbutz Nakshanim, and I had a great experience. But again, my daughter, who's 32 now, said to me, "Didn't you realize that you were on land that might have been stolen?" And I must admit, from the propaganda that I grew up with here, that I never thought about that. No. And I traveled all over Israel. I went to Jaffa, and I must have interacted with Arab people, and I couldn't tell the difference between Arabs and Jews. And that, in retrospect, it's a great thing, I think, because there is so little difference, as you started to say at the beginning. So we're really cousins. And one last thing to say, I think with the Jewish holidays coming, the holy days, it's going to be trauma again that has to be overcome, to think of the holiness of the land for everyone, not just for Jews, and not just from a Jewish perspective. And so, inshallah.
Thank you for sharing. Hopefully we'll meet when you're here.
Love that. Honor.
John Service, you have your hand up, and if you want to go ahead and speak, we'd love to see you too if your camera works. Yeah,
Sure.
there you go.
problem. Oh, this is working. Thank you very much. It's really a wonderful presentation and very insightful. I really appreciate your emphasis on bearing witness and trying to help people understand the Palestinian reality that they face and all the challenges that they're subjected to, so that it's possible to then get a better understanding of how unfair and unjust it is, how oppressive it is. I did have a chance to go to Israel a couple times and to go to the West Bank. I went there before the current crisis, when there was things happening in Jenin and those areas, and I went there to go help the Palestinian organizations responding to the damages caused by the Israeli attack into Jenin. And when I went on that first trip, I've been many places around the world. I work in humanitarian assistance. I go to many trouble spots around the world. But what I really found that stood out to me about the Palestinian situation was it was a manufactured separation, a manufactured containment. And it seemed to me almost like they created a labyrinth upon which the Palestinians needed to try to move around through the labyrinth. It was done almost on purpose to sort of keep them divided, separated, constrained, and without the ability to really live a free and full life. And I was really struck by the Palestinian perspective that even within that, they still had hope for change to come about, that they could live in harmony with Israel in a common reality. Of course, we don't know exactly how that would be, but in some form of common reality. And it seemed to me that even though they were going through all that, they had at least a forgiveness from their own perspective and a wish for some sort of reconciliation. Unfortunately, then all the violent actors did what they did, and we got down into this current crisis of 2 years of extreme violence. And we're really no better for it. But I go back to that feeling I had when I first went to the West Bank, in that I felt it was really a manufactured reality. And I do think that if there is more bearing witness and more interaction between the Palestinian and Israeli populations, you will get more of a connection, and that will bring people together and start to create common understanding. And I think that's exactly why they don't allow that to happen, by not allowing people to go to certain areas or connect in different ways. And I think that's a purpose, and it helps to create then the demonization that they need to then continue the violence. And it's both sides, because we're also, as you said, on the other side too. That's not the way the solution will happen. It will happen through bearing witness, through understanding each other, and realizing that we're all interconnected in this. So I really appreciate what you're doing, because that's so much what's needed. So thank you very much for all that you do, and don't stop. Keep it going, please.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this words, and I emphasize that the peace agreement that was signed was all about putting more restrictions and separating Palestinian and Israeli, and installing these big red signs at the entrance of the Palestinian towns and villages, saying that you are entering a Palestinian town, it's dangerous for your life. So they're trying to also to put and plant the fear among the Israeli, and this is what the Israeli government is doing, planting the fear and controlling the Israeli people by talking about security and fear, and there is always an external threat that is there against Israel. And as long as they believe in the external threat, Israel becomes stronger and stronger and controlling on the ground, implementing more restrictions of movement. It's, very easy for an Israeli, one soldier can come and close the whole Bethlehem city by just closing the door. That's it. They don't need more than one soldier. These kind of, bearing witnesses are important when we bring them here to see the reality. Because, when I was, a teenager, I joined these peace programs. I was one of the Palestinian joining an Israeli, like a peace program with an Israeli participant, that they invite Israeli and Palestinian to come for, 2 or 3 days retreat, just to meet, to talk. And the meeting was actually taking place in Sweden, in Europe, not only here. So we got invitation to travel for Palestinian and for Israeli to Sweden to meet. And that was the first encounter for me with an Israeli, not soldiers, with an Israeli young people, that they are not with their uniform. And you cannot imagine the conversation that we had, like, being in a hotel together in one building, meeting in the meeting every day in the meeting hall. All the conversation was about pointing the fingers on each other, who's right and who's wrong. I want to prove as a Palestinian that I am right and you're wrong and you're evil and they were doing the same for us. So this is the kind of the peace retreats is all about. And this is why we as Holy Land Trust, we say we don't do peace programs, we do a healing programs where we bring Israeli and Palestinian not for the sake of meeting, but for the sake of being in connection, with heart-to-heart connection, to put yourself in the shoes of the others. And this is where I got to understand, if you remember in the first, when I started my conversation, I mentioned that Jesus said, love your enemy. And for me, I got to understand what does love your enemy means when I joined the Healing Hatred programs, when I decided to put myself in the shoes of my enemy, to put myself in the situation of my enemy, to be fully feelings, the emotions and the pain of my enemy. This is what Jesus said, meant by loving your enemy, to bear witness, to go to Auschwitz, and understand the pain. And at the same time, I'm asking my Israeli people to put themselves in the shoes of the Palestinian, to put themselves in the shoes of the people in Gaza, not on the shoes that they want, to feel, and this is actually where I see now the conflict, the violent conflict that we are experiencing now. It's a reaction, and it's like a mirror of our internal conflicts. It's a reflection of our internal conflict as a human. The conflict that we are seeing in the news and in Gaza and in Israel, Hamas, military, these illusions. If you close your eyes and look at yourself, it's happening inside us. It's all about ego. It's all about power. It's all about hate. It's all about rejection. It's all about greed, control. And this is, the conflict that we are having in our daily life. And it's a reflection to what we are struggling in. So as long as we do a personal healing and transformation, unless we are healed as an individual, I think it will be a reflection to our external environment. And this is why I believe, bearing witness is one of the main steps for healing, to put yourself in the shoes of the others. And I invite everyone, this is why we invite internationals only, to not judge and build their perspective from what they are experiencing on the TV or in the social media. They have to come and live and to put their shoes to put themselves in the shoes of the others in Israel and in Palestine, to come and encounter. And unfortunately, many of our international friends, they've been entry denied. They deny entry at Israel because, Israel also control all the borders, all the airports. And if you come and say, I want to visit Palestine, you'll be automatically rejected. So we always say, you can come as a tourist. You can say, I'm going to Jerusalem, to the holy places, but do not mention you are coming to Palestine. Do not mention that you are coming to meet Palestinian, because this is a very easy excuse for Israeli to stamp your passport with denial entry, because they don't want people to know the reality. They don't want their people or even to meet with the Palestinian. So these kind of things that we as Holy Land Trust keep fighting for, keep doing by, doing these joint activities, inviting international, responding to the needs of the local community for their resilience, for their rights here in the land. So maybe we have 4 or 5 minutes for more questions.
Yeah,
I
thank
can
you,
cover.
Elias. It looks like Paul in Berlin.
Yeah. See, very quickly. Thanks a lot, Elias. That's super insightful. I was just wondering with this last part that you mentioned, like besides of our inner transformation of all these kind of core values, and also like exchanging or like receiving different stories from people like you or people that are experiencing the genocide. I was wondering, like, from people that are abroad, what do you think are like the actions that can be more powerful in terms of like boycotting and demonstrating, I don't know, donating to organizations?
Thank you. But also, part of our action is, calling the international community, just amplify our stories, share our stories. As I said, part of our trauma that we feel we are unseen. Nobody listens to us. So when, as an international community, share the Palestinian stories, share the reality, the stories from the ground. It's part of the things that we really look for. Recognition. Now, what's happening on the international level, recognizing Palestine as a state. It's not about, we know that it's not going to be affected, it's not going to be a reality soon, but at least the recognition itself, it might give a huge relief for the people here that we are seeing. So sharing the stories, and as well as putting pressure on the government to take people who are in charge of this chaos and trouble in accountability. According to the international the ICC International Criminal Court, many cases being submitted to the International Criminal Court against the settler violence, and no action is taken, no accountability. That we need the international community, to put more pressure on Israel and on their government to end this kind of action. Now the settlers, they have more power now than the soldiers. That they are armed, they can do whatever they can without any accountability. At the same time, we need for sure international donation, because as long as we don't have money here on the ground, we cannot keep providing the needs of the local community. We, as I always say, the civil society in Palestine, they are acting as they are replacing the government, because our governments, our leaders are not fulfilling the needs of the people here. Since October 7th, the poverty rate is really high, unemployment, home demolition, restrictions of movement. And we as an organization, we feel we are carrying a heavy weight on our soldiers, our shoulders, that we need to respond to the needs of those people. Currently, we are building a house for a family that their home was demolished. And we are raising money from our international friends to build it. And we provide food parcels. So yeah, your donation is really appreciated. You can donate through our website, and we have a fiscal agreement with an American organization called Nonviolence International, or your donation is tax deductible through the American partner organization as well. So yeah, and keep on sharing stories. And invite us for a speaking tour. That's also an important for. I've been to the US and to Europe, to Germany, maybe 7 times to Germany in a speaking tour, sharing our story and building this connection with people.
Thank you, Elias. And we've just come to the end of our time. I put the URL for Holy Land Trust in the chat, but it's holylandtrust.org. And you can sign up for the newsletter and get news about what Elias and his group are doing, and offer them some support. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us.